Super cool topic today, something that I'm going through right now as we speak. So I have been on the hunt through research and time and all this stuff for years, and it's finally time that I've actually pulled the trigger. And that is structuring a deal for my first investment property. So originally I was looking at an all cash deal, but as I started crunching the numbers and the more I started looking into some things, felt like strategic financing might be a better option. So in today's video, I'm going to give you guys 5 ways that you can finance or structure your first rental property deal. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? Brian Rivera, CPA, and on this channel, I talk all things personal finance, entrepreneurship, and investing. So if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. So one of the biggest dilemmas that real estate investors face is finding a good deal. It almost feels like they're a dime a dozen. From my viewpoint, a good deal is something that generates positive cash flows, and it also generates a double-digit cap rate. If you don't know what a cap rate is essentially a capitalization rate, and it's a formula that real estate investors use. And what that formula does is it takes your pre-tax cash flow divided by the fair market value of your property. So whatever that percentage is, that's your cap rate. So typically, real estate investors say that a cap rate that is 4% or greater is typically a good deal. So personally, for my first deal, I wanted to knock it out of the park. So I wanted to make sure I was in the double-digit range. So this first deal, I'm looking at roughly a 15% capitalization rate. And so once you go through the MLS and you're working with your realtor and you find that deal, it's time to part ways with your cash. And as you get ready to part ways to your cash, you start thinking to yourself like, okay, cool, I'm gonna have my first property paid for with cash. Now, that sounds great, but there's a concept called velocity of cash where you keep your cash in motion. So if there's a way to strategically leverage the bank to pay off your rental, but also keep your cash in circulation, I think that is the optimal way to go. Now, it's absolutely important that the numbers line up, but if everything works out in your favor and you've got some good tenants, you're reaping good cash flow, you're leveraging the bank's money, then you can start building on that and build your real estate portfolio. So I've explored 5 different ways that you could finance your first rental property deal. Now, this is not for an individual who is looking for a primary residence, like this is your first time, you're a first time home buyer, or you're looking at an owner occupied situation where you're buying a house and you plan on sitting in it for a year or two and then turning it into a rental pool. This is strictly for investment properties. So number 1 is going to be a conventional mortgage loan. Now this is very similar to applying for a loan for your primary residence, where the process starts with applying through your mortgage broker or your credit union or your bank, and you will apply for a loan or an investment loan very similar to how you would if it was a primary mortgage. Now what the lender will do is they will run your credit, they'll run your credit history, they'll look at your assets and liabilities, and they'll look at your ability to pay not only your current mortgage, but also the investment property that you plan on financing. So in some situations, you'll be required to have enough cash on hand to cover both properties, your primary mortgage and your rental property, for at least 6 months. Now, any projected income from rent won't be factored into your credit worthiness or your ability to pay this investment loan. So number 2 is going to be borrowing against the home equity on your existing home. So if you have a primary residence and you've built up some pretty significant equity, you can actually borrow against that. Now there's 3 ways that you can do that. That's going to be a home equity loan. There's going to be a HELOC or a home equity line of credit. And then the 3rd way is going to be a cash out refinance. And now the requirements will be that you will pay monthly payments. So that's going to be both principal and interest on that new loan that you just took out. So hopefully, when you take out that new loan, that cash flow from the rental property will not only cover that loan, but it'll also generate cash flow for you. Number 3 is going to be hard money. So hard money is typically a short-term loan. It's usually not geared towards buy and hold investments. It's more or less built for flipping. So if you bought a home, fix it up and wanted to sell it in a short period, usually hard money loans are good for that. So now there are situations where you could use a hard money loan to bridge the gap to get more of long-term investing. So maybe you need help, with the down payment or to just cover the entire home. You take the hard money loan out, you pay the property off, and then you get a longer-term loan. While these types of loans consider the value of the property versus your personal income or your credit, they come at extremely, extremely high interest rates. So you need to consider all of your options before you take a hard money loan, especially if you're looking at investing in a long-term rental. Number 4 is going to be private money. So this is going to be very much relationship based versus the other forms of financing. Now, if you can make a strong case for your investment or strong business case, a private lender could give you the cash at a predetermined interest rate for a fixed term. Now, a mortgage and promissory note is going to secure that investment for the lender. Number 5 is going to be owner financing. So in certain situations, a property owner could finance the sale of the property. Now, this is possible for properties that are owned outright to where the owner doesn't actually owe any money to the bank. The own type situation. So maybe you're renting a townhouse or a home and you really like it, and you hit up the owner and say, hey man, I love it, I want to buy this from you, and maybe they could finance that property to you. So with owner financing, you will agree on a price and you will typically pay that to the owner versus a bank or a lender. So moral of the story, you got to find a good deal. So if you don't have a good deal, you don't have an investment. So step 1 is you got to find a good deal. Now, how you finance your rental property plays a huge role because that's going to determine whether or not this is a good investment. If you take time to carefully explore your options, you'll end up making the best choice to finance your property so that way you can get those funds you need to invest. You want your investments to be a success without binding you to any unrealistic financial obligations. All right, guys, so hopefully you found some value in today's video. That's all I've got today. So I sincerely wish you guys the best of luck as you go out and find your first rental property. Have a good one.